So in this session, we'll try to create an abstract class and interface. So in the previous session, we have already gone through the concept of abstract class and interface. So let's create any abstract class. So what is the abstract class? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Abstract class means
So what is the abstract class?
which will have
Abstract class contains
which will have
abstract
abstract
method,
methods.
at least one abstract method. We call that class as abstract class. So abstract classes can contain both methods with implementation and methods without implementation. Without implementation methods, we call them as abstract methods, right? The methods with implementation, we can also call the concrete method. Okay, concrete method and abstract method. Concrete method is with implementation, abstract method is without implementation. So to call the abstract method, we cannot directly call that abstract method in the abstract class. Okay, we cannot create the object for the, or sorry, we cannot call the abstract method using abstract class object. So we can only create implementation for this abstract method in the subclass, and we can call method using that subclass. Okay, so that abstract class can be inherit to different subclasses, right? So depends on their requirement. Every individual can implement their own implementation for that abstract method. Okay, so let's create any abstract class. Go to SC24, create class. So can we use final checkbox for abstract class? If you use final checkbox, we cannot inherit further, right? For the subclasses, this class cannot be act as a superclass if we select this final checkbox. So can we use final checkbox for abstract class?
No, sir.
No, because the abstract method should be implemented in a subclass, so that we need to implement inheritance concept on this class. So this abstract class acts as a superclass for the subclasses. That's why we should not select final checkbox. Save it. Save in a particular package. Then define your attributes, whatever the attributes you want, and define the methods. So let's define one method. It's a concrete method. Let's assume it is a concrete method. That means it contains the implementation. I'll define some parameters. We'll take customer number as input and return complete customer data as output, KNA1. And let's implement the method. Double click and implement the method. So I'm creating the implementation now. I'm directly taking the exporting parameter because I am selecting all fields here. And here I'm using the complete table reference. So select single star and this complete table reference are creating the same structures. So this method implementation is completed. So activate all class relevant objects. Go back. Now I want to create an abstract method. Get vendor. I'll define the parameters. Listener, importing. What is a vendor master table?
LFA1.
Customer master is KNA1. What is vendor master?
LFA1.
LFA1. Okay. Supplier master table. Supplier or vendor, like both are same. Now, I'm not creating implementation for this method. I'm not creating implementation for this method. So I'm making this method as a abstract method. Somewhere we have an option to set this method as abstract method. Somewhere in the properties we have option to set this as a abstract method.
Sir,
Yep.
can we do that in super class, or we should do that in a subclass, sir?
No, first we should define this as abstract method in the superclass. That means abstract class. And to implement this method, here for the get customer, we implemented that method in the superclass itself. That is an abstract class itself, right? But for
Yes,
the
sir.
abstract method, so we should define it as abstract method in the superclass, and we should use we should create implementation in the subclass.
Subclass. Okay.
Where are the method properties? Yeah, here this is the option. Go to properties. Right, select this option, go to properties, method properties. Here it will display this pop-up window. Here you need to select this option, abstract method. If you already created any implementation, that will be deleted. If you implement any code in that method, it will be automatically deleted. Okay, when you selected that method as a abstract method, and click on change. Now this method is a abstract method. We call this entire class as a abstract class because it contains one abstract method. Activate it. It is active. When I am trying to double click, It is not working. Method get vendor is abstract. It contains only parameters, right? No implementation. Okay. Now to implement this method, so we should inherit this abstract class into a subclass and call that subclass in your program. Create one subclass to implement the subclass, create it. It can be final, or you can remove the final checkbox. If you want to inherit further, if you want to use multi-level inheritance. Now go to properties and in superclass enter the abstract class name as superclass and go to methods, save the class. So you can see both methods. One is a concrete method, that means with implementation. The other one is abstract method. Now how to implement abstract method? If you double click, it won't allow you to implement. What you need to do, how to implement abstract method? Please remember, redefine it. You have to redefine it. Redefine the abstract method and implement whatever the functionality you want. Where some functionality, whatever functionality it is. Here I am using some simple statements, but in general, you may need to write complex business logic using a lot of select statements, loops, everything. Activate the subclass. Along with that superclass concrete method, abstract method, you can have your own methods in the subclass. Depends on your requirement. You can create your own methods which are specific to this subclass. Okay. So that like you are providing a flexibility for the developers to implement their own implementation, depends on their scenario, and using the one standard functionality designed by any lead or someone in the project, right? So in general, we have taken only two parameters, right? One importing parameter and one exporting parameter. But in general, in the projects, we might have many importing parameters and many exporting parameters. So we can reuse all of them instead of creating our own importing parameters and exporting parameters every time. So we can reuse the list of importing and exporting parameters if you are reusing abstract method. Okay. How to call the methods? It's same as how to call our normal method, no difference. Let me create one simple program. Calling subclass, superclass, no difference. Creating object is only thing. Create the object and call the method. Okay. Create executable program. So I'll take two parameters. Okay, let me check the data element.
E-listener, sir.
E-listener.
E-lift.
Okay, so initialization to populate default values to the selection screen parameters, selection screen inputs, at selection screen to validate the selection screen inputs, and at selection screen on value request is to add dynamic search help, and start of selection here I'll call the methods. So which method we need to call? Abstract method or subclass method?
Subclass.
If you want to call, if you want to execute this method, if you want to execute get vendor, if you want to execute get vendor functionality, since it's an abstract method, we implemented in a subclass, and we need to call a subclass. If you want to execute get customer, it is both. You can call superclass as well as subclass, because we are inheriting, right? You can create object for superclass and call it, or you can create object for subclass and call it. Both works in the same way. Okay.
Yes, sir.
How to create the object? Using new ABAP syntax.
Dot dot.
Obj equal to
Equal to
new
new
class name.
class name. Open brackets.
uh, we'll create two different objects, one for superclass and one for subclass. Okay. Do we have any constructor?
Brackets.
No, right? We don't have constructor, and that constructor doesn't have any importing parameters. That's why we can keep empty brackets. If you have constructor and that constructor contains importing parameters, what we need to do?
We
We
have
need to
to put
pass the
in
we
the
need to pass the importing parameters like this. Whatever the importing parameters of the constructor, we need to pass here. Okay, because constructor will execute automatically when we create the object, right? Now call the method, go to pattern, ABAP object patterns,
pattern.
provide the instance nothing but object name, select the method. So this is the abstract method, we cannot call that. And return the data using and to call abstract method, we should define object for subclass.
Subclass.
Since we don't have constructor, you don't need to pass any importing parameters here, and call the subclass. Select that abstract method. You can see both, because we are inheriting, right? then just display the sample output using CL demo output method. What type of method it is? This display method. Is it instance method or static method?
Static method.
Static method.
Static method, and we are providing this data as importing parameter here to display it. Okay, what it is saying? Instance of the abstract class, the abstract class cannot be generated. Okay, so it is not allowing to create instance or object for abstract method. So we can only call methods of the abstract class using subclass. Okay, it's not allowing us to use abstract class to create the instance, right? Even for the concrete method, the method with implementation, it's not allowing, right? So let's replace this with I'll just remove object for the abstract class, and I'll just change the object name. I'm already using it, right? Object 1, sorry, object 1, that's it. So it is not allowing to create object for abstract class. It's not allowing to call the abstract class methods. So we can call only its subclass methods. Check. So no errors. Activate. Is everyone clear on this? So we are using subclass object to call the both methods. Method with implementation and method without implementation. We created the implementation in subclass and calling the both methods in subclass. So everyone should create a subclass, their own subclass, to use these abstract class methods. Okay. The standard functionality will be available in abstract class. To reuse that functionality, we have to inherit that abstract class method into one subclass. Okay. And redefine the method and create the implementation for abstract method. But it is not allowing to create instance for any abstract class method. We should create instance only for its subclass. Is everyone clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So understand this concept. Whenever you get a chance in the project, try to implement it. Or at least you should know how to use abstract class methods, right? Whenever you see abstract class, you need to create your own subclass to create the implementation or to call the methods of that abstract class. Okay. Trying to find some test data. Okay, let's test our program. Lifter vendor, I'll provide some vendor. So object is created. So object is created for the subclass. F6. So we got customer data. F6. We got vendor data from the subclass. F8. So it will display the output. Okay. So this is how we use abstract classes. So now let's see interfaces. What is an interface? What is the
Interface
interface in
contains
object-oriented web? Yeah,
interface
interface
contains methods
contains
without any
methods
implementation.
without any implementation. So all methods of the interface cannot contain any implementation. It only contains importing and changing parameters, and all the methods are in public visibility. Okay. So interface are for standardization, so that everyone can use same method names to implement the functionality with all the different importing parameters. Okay. And also it will like we can achieve polymorphism using interfaces. So since multiple inheritance is not supported in ABAP, so we can use interfaces to achieve multiple inheritance. That means using multiple classes as superclasses for one subclass. So how to create a custom interface, or first see how to implement any standard interface. How to find the interfaces? Interfaces are also available in SC24 only. So here in the object type, for standard interfaces, most of the standard interfaces will starts with if underscore. Okay, if underscore interface name. So it depends on your requirement. You can find your standard interface. Let me use some keywords to find. See, what are these body interfaces? These are part of body definitions, right? So when we are creating the body implementations, we are implementing these interfaces. Let's check this one interface. We have one method here, change input. We have one method, change input method. Let's check the parameters. So we have multiple importing and changing parameters. Mostly we see importing and changing parameters, not exporting parameters. Okay. We can also have attributes and constants in the interfaces. Okay. Let's check other interfaces. I'll check this. So here we have multiple methods. Check relevance, finalize, on adjust numbers, on cleanup. We have different types of methods. We have on save. Each method will have its own parameters. Okay. So when you are reusing the interfaces, when you are implementing the interfaces, you can use all these importing and exporting parameters. You don't need to define again in different methods. You can just reuse all these importing and exporting parameters. We have many importing parameters here, right? You don't need to worry about what is the type, what is the associated type of the each importing parameter and everything. You can simply implement this finalize method and write your code. Let's take this interface. Let's take this interface. To create the implementation for this interface method, what we need to do? We need to create one class, because interfaces can be implemented only through class. Z demo class for interface, create it. Now what we need to create? Interface. Okay, select interface, sorry, class. We are not creating interface, right? We are just creating implementation for the interface. Select class. It can be final, or you can remove final checkbox. That's up to your choice. Save it. Now, how to add interfaces? Here, go to interface tab and add the interface name here. And you can add multiple interfaces. You can add multiple interfaces here. Go to methods now. So interface methods are automatically added to the class, right? So each method is with the interface name, tilde operator, and a method name. Let's assume we have added one more interface. Right? That interface also contains a method name called finalize. That different interface also contains method name called finalize. Is there any issue?
Sir, what is the question?
We added one more interface here, and that interface also contains one method that is finalize. Is it going to allow that in the class or not? Because the method name is same.
Yes, sir, it's allowing
It's allowed
because
because here we are
sir,
using interface reference, interface tilde operator and method name. Okay, so the class will accept same method from multiple interfaces. Okay, which is not possible in multiple inheritance, which is not allowed in multiple inheritance. So here, by using interfaces, we can use it. Okay. Now, how to create the implementation?
sir,
Let me complete this. How to create the implementation for interface method? Just double click on it, create the implementation, and write your code. Depends on the importing and exporting parameters. Let's say I'll write some sample select query. What are the changing parameters we have? ET message, item results, and rejected. I'll just implement some functionality. Use importing parameters. XVBAK, YVBAK. I'll use XVBAK. Sorry, we don't have XVBAK. We have YVBAK. IS YVBAK VBLN. Some simple functionality I've implemented. Activate it. Activate all dependent objects. Okay. So like this, you can create implementation for interface method. Double click on the interface method and create your implementation. Write your functionality. Right. So here all methods are displaying, right? Methods with implementation and without implementation, all interface methods are displaying, right? I think we can use filter option to display method only with the implementation. I don't know why it is not filtering. Looks like it is created implementation for all methods. If you see, when I implemented one interface method, it created implementation for all the methods, right? But there is no code, but implementation is created. Empty implementation is created. Activate the class, and you can call this class method, this class and this method in your program to execute that functionality. Okay. It is same. It is considered, just consider it as one method. Create the instance for interface class, this class which we created to implement the interface, and call this method. Okay. Simple. Let me call this method here itself. So these are all the interface methods. Call the interface method where you have implemented the functionality, and pass all your importing parameters and execute the method. Same, simple. So all of them are mandatory parameters. So you have to pass all the parameters for this interface method. Okay. So when you are implementing the body, interface methods are automatically implemented with the help of one class. So class is automatically creating. Okay. When we are implementing body, one class is automatically creating. What is the purpose of that class? To implement interface methods of that body. Because what can you find in body? Interfaces, right?
Yes, sir.
Go to SC18, open any body. What can you find in body? Interface. In interface, we have different interface methods. You can open this body in SC24 also. Display. So this is the body interface. To create the implementation for any of these methods, we need to use a class. That's why one class is automatically generating when we are creating implementation for body. Okay. That is about interfaces. So mostly we need to use abstract classes and interfaces like in any of the object-oriented programming concepts and even inheritance. So you should have idea on these concepts, how to use it. Okay. Because most of the times complex design will be completed by the architect or whoever lead of that project. So as a developer, what is your responsibility? You need to use those interface methods or that abstract classes. Okay. How to create custom interface? Your own custom interface. Till now we have used standard interface, right? So how to create your own custom interface? Simple. Use some naming convention. It starts with ZIF underscore demo interface. Okay. Create. Since we are starting with ZIF, it is automatically creating interface. Please observe. It is not even asking. So class or interface. So interface name starts with ZIF. Provide description. Demo interface. Save it. Define some method. Level. Instance method. By default, these are public. Define the parameters. What are the other allowed parameters here? We use mostly changing parameters. CH, we'll use CH, KNA1, changing. Save the interface save the interface and activate it. Now interface is ready. To implement this interface method, what we need to do? We need to add this
To a class.
interface to class. Go to interfaces, add interface. If you go to methods, you can see that interface method here. Okay. Even if you have a same method name, let me add one more method called finalize. instance method. For this, I'll provide some sample importing parameters. Activate the interface. Now go back, change the class. Now we can see one more method, that is finalize. So we have two methods with same name, finalize from the one interface, finalize from the different interface. Okay, so you can create different implementation for the both methods, depends on the requirement.